Well, I'm a writer, so my days are fairly boring. I just get up quite early, write for 3 or 4 hours in the morning, and then in the afternoon I usually do some reading, research, and maybe do a bit of exercise as well. So fairly sort of domesticated. I mean, writing is more than a job for me. It's a passion. It's something I just feel alive when I'm doing. And so yeah, I've always and I like to write about lots of different things. And so it's a way of satisfying and financing my curiosity about the world, I guess. Worried for my wife and what effect it would have on her emotionally, and then they take away all your. I mean, as a writer, my computer is basically the tool of my trade. So they took away I had 3 laptops. And they took away all of those and my phone and all my storage, storage devices, and the notes for the book I was working on. And so, yeah, the whole book was on those printouts and on those storage. So that was it. That was gone for the next. Well, they still have them, so I don't know when I'll get them back. Yeah, and the fact that I couldn't. I have to sleep at the same address every night, so I couldn't visit family or because they live too far away for a day trip, So yeah, but it was a question of just seeing, what would happen and learning to adapt. My income went, to almost zero, because I still get some royalties from previous books, so that's been what's been keeping me going. Yeah, you have to budget quite carefully, but I never worry too much about those things because I always put my faith in Allah and tawakkul. Many months afterwards, whenever there was a knock on the door, I would be terrified. And the police did come back several times, and sometimes they would get the neighbour to buzz them into the corridor and then bang on my actual flat door rather than the outside door. Whenever anyone does that now, I will be quiet. I will never answer the door. If my wife's at home, she'll answer the door, but if she's not, I will just get under the duvet and hide. For a while, they were coming around every week and knocking on the door at all times of the day and night, and it was just harassment. They were deliberately trying to make me upset, so I complained about that, and then it sort of stopped. You have to find some place to be, resilient. Otherwise, it'll just mess with your head. So, reached out to organisations like HHUGS, and then you discover that there's other people who've been in that situation. And I think that's the most important thing: it's very isolating at first, but when you realise that there's a lot of support you can get from them, informal friendship support, financial support, moral support, legal support, and I think then you feel that you don't feel so alone, and I think that's the main thing. I think people react in very different ways. Some people are terrified, some people are able to deal with it much more easily. For people who don't know for other people who haven't been arrested under terrorism offence and they hear about it, I think some of them think it's probably the worst thing in the world that can happen to you, and they're extremely worried. And other people just can't take it seriously at all, because when they say, if you tell someone, like if I tell a friend of mine I was arrested under the terrorism act, they say, yeah, but you weren't a terrorist, were you? You're not a terrorist. What was it you did? And I said, well, I posted, a tweet. then they think, oh, it's ridiculous, you know, they can't prosecute you for that. They don't realise how serious it is. Some people, yeah, think it's, you know, you're going to end up in, I don't know, Guantanamo Bay. Other people think that don't take it seriously enough, and they don't realise how severe the law can be when you're in that category of terrorism offence. Because it sounds, you know, this is a very extreme word, terrorism. But nowadays, because you can be arrested for just having a single tweet and still be arrested under the Terrorism Act, it doesn't seem to match up or make much sense. That you don't know what the rules of the game are. You might think that they've taken a lot of stuff, you'll give it back to you fairly quickly, that you can easily ask for permission to go on holiday or something, but you've got to realise that you're in a system where the rules are very, very strict, and you have no idea what those rules are to start with, and I think you have to be prepared to, don't expect the police to be reasonable or the courts to be compassionate or understanding. You've got to understand that you will be mistrusted from the word go. You will not be treated as someone who's acting in good faith. You'll be a suspect. Everything you do will be treated with suspicion. You know, it meant that I couldn't carry on writing the book that I was working on. I couldn't earn a living. And seeing as, you know, some writers do a lot of their writing longhand to start with, but I've always been someone who just I need to just type. And so I couldn't afford to buy another laptop. So I was I'd borrow a friend's for a few hours, or I'd just try and learn to write longhand again. It was, yeah, it's been difficult, but then you need, you know, sometimes, you know, learning to make do with what you've got can also be quite a good discipline. So my life has gone back to sort of how it was in many ways. I mean, the fact is, I can't travel anymore. I can't really go on holiday because I need to sleep at this address every night. So it has changed, you know, reduced my life in some ways, but I think of it all as a learning experience, and I'm also learned a lot about the law, it's helped me to think about what the terrorism legislation is used for, what its real purpose is. Is it about fighting terrorism, or is it about controlling populations? Actually helped me to inquire about things in a new way, and sort of give me an added urgency to my questioning. I think that if you know, Allah will never give you anything harder to deal with than, you know, what you can actually cope with. If He gives you a difficult situation, He'll give you the strength to cope with that too. And if he makes you then ask for help and contact people like HHUGS or CAGE, or friends or family, or, you know, then that's part of the journey. You suddenly realise there's a lot of people in similar situations who are struggling to make ends meet, and it's not obvious because, you know, they're not sleeping in the street, but they might be sofa surfing. They're still homeless. They're just not on the street. They're not visible. I think that is something that people, it's very easy if you've got, you know, a regular job and you've got a regular income to not see that. It's invisible. You just walk past and you don't realise it's there. I think it's it's definitely an eye-opener. I've got, because my faith gives me a lot of emotional resilience, I have found it stressful, but I've found it, you know, you have a choice. You can either allow it to get to you, or you can, I mean, what's the worst that they can do? Okay, they put me in prison, but, you know, lots of good people have been to prison. Well, a lot of my heroes have been to prison. Malcolm X was in prison. You know, Nelson Mandela was in prison. You know, if you're a writer and you haven't been to prison, then I wonder how good a writer you are. We use food banks. We don't buy luxuries. We don't, you know, but I'm used to living quite simply. You know, most of my life is in my head. So it is difficult because, you know, you miss a rent payment, or you're late with it, or you miss a subscription payment, or you can't afford to maybe go out and see a movie or go out with friends to have a bite to eat, but you just learn to deal with that. You adapt. I think the secret to life is about adapting to whatever situation you're thrown into. We usually get by with food we can get from the food bank. Well, we cut sort of things like, just being able to maybe subscribe to Netflix, or be able to get on the train or go and see a friend or a family member. Clothes, you have to get very basic with clothes. There are many people in the world who have a lot less than me, so it's good to try and just live more simply sometimes. Yes, I mean, I don't like asking people for money, but there's sometimes you just have to overcome your pride. I'm lucky that I have some very good friends who, if I do need to borrow some money, I've been able to phone them up, and they've said, like, why didn't you phone before? But I said, I just don't. Obviously, no one likes asking for money. So, but you have to. You can't afford to be proud. I would do the same for them. I have done the same for friends, but I've had more money than them. So, I think it's what goes around comes around. Well, I don't like claiming benefits because I don't like filling in forms, and I don't like being on, the fewer government databases that I'm on, the better. And I've got no problem with, I think everybody who's entitled to benefits, should claim them if they want to, but I would rather, plus also, as I'm a writer, sometimes I might get, I might have nothing for 10 weeks or a month, 3 months, and then a check comes in. And if you're on benefits, that it's really hard to do that, because then you can't claim benefits for that week, and then you have to claim the next week. People survive because of friendship, family support, solidarity. I can't stand the bureaucracy of all the form filling, so I just trust in Allah and my friends. Tie your camel first and then tawakkul. If you miss one of those court hearings, then you have broken your bail, and then that means that you can be arrested and put straight in prison on remand, waiting for your trial. Struggling to get enough money to afford the train fare to London, HHUGS has been able to help me with my travel expenses, and with a lot more now. So with food costs as well, and heating costs. So that really does make a huge difference. It sort of takes a lot of stress off your mind. It takes a lot of weight off your shoulders, just to know that you're not going to end up in prison just because you can't afford a train fare. Came across HHUGS because phoned Cage after I was arrested, because I'd heard about them before. I'd followed them in the news, and then they've been really good about sort of giving me moral support, really, and some informal advice, and put me in touch with lawyers and so on, and just generally befriending me. But they've also told me about HHUGS, and so I put it off for a while, because I wanted to, I didn't want to take any money from anyone unless I really needed it. But yeah, I got to that point where it was like, this is crazy. I've got to, get in touch with HHUGS properly, and because it's just getting to the point where, I can't survive without that sort of help. No, because I knew I had a good report about HHUGS. The Ummah is really good at, Muslim charities and NGOs are incredibly sensitive and kind, and I've never felt judged by any of the Muslim organisations, Islamic organisations that I've been involved with. I think because people know from experience. Met lots of people who've been in that situation. They know what it's like, and they go to a lot of effort to make you feel welcome. The first HUGS gave me was paying for my train fare to attend court. And that was just right at the last minute when I needed it. So that was because I'd only turned to HUGS like at the last moment, and that was really good. And then I realised that, and then people at HUGS told me that, you know, this is an ad hoc thing, a moment of support, but if you need sort of ongoing support for regular outgoing expenses, then you know you should have a look at the website and talk to us at greater length. And then that led me to apply for some sort of ongoing help from HUGS. And yeah, that did mean filling out a few forms, but it wasn't for the government. And so yeah, I was very happy to do that. And obviously HUGS has got to account for the money they give out to people. They can't just give it out without any due diligence. So that strikes me as perfectly right that they should ask for that information. And yes, then HUGS has now, because of that, I've been through that process, and they had a look at my financial situation, and they found that they've been giving me support through food vouchers, which is really, really, really useful. And it means we don't have to worry about, scrabbling around. We still go to the food bank at times, but it means that we're not totally dependent on that. And it also means that we'll also get support for our fuel bills. And so that is really useful in the winter when heating bills go up quite a lot. It's a huge difference psychologically as well as, I mean, it's obviously financially and practically it's incredibly important, but it gives you a boost psychologically as well. Also, my partner, she gets very stressed, much more stressed than I do about finances. So being able to see her a bit more relaxed and confident as well, that means a lot. Well, yeah, missing court, I think, would be my biggest fear, because it seems like, you could be just 10 quid short of a train fare, and for that lacking 10 quid, you might end up on remand in prison for 9 months or something. HUGS has meant feeling that I can breathe more easily and have a weight off my shoulders. Well, it means that you feel seen and you feel heard. I suffer a bit from SAD, seasonal affective disorder, so I've always found winter a bit difficult, which is why I've often travelled in sunny countries. Yeah, you just, luckily it hasn't been such a cold winter, but you're always worried that if it's cold, are you going to be warm enough? I think that's the main thing. Yeah, there's been times when, it's been a question of, are we going to turn the heating on, or are we going to eat? It can make you restore your faith in humanity, I think. Make you quite happy to realise that there are good people in the world and kindness. It will make a huge difference. Even just a few pounds can make a huge difference, and I think HUGS is extremely responsible about how they allocate their resources, and the people in HUGS they are motivated by a genuine concern for what they're doing. They believe in the mission of what they're doing, and so I think it's in terms of how much bang you get for your charitable buck, I think it's got to be up there.